Sunday morning, and it is a special Sunday morning because you guys all may recall that we were at WesterCon a while back, last week or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Miss Ma'am?
Yeah, but it was NorwestCon. We were at NorwestCon 2 weeks ago.
NorwestCon.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm not real smart sometimes.
they all
Um,
were together.
so, and everybody who's ever been to a con knows that when you counting on the internet, you're gambling terribly. Uh, and so we uh, we gambled with these two young writers that we could do a good show, and I had to apologize to both Gretchen and Elizabeth, saying no, it didn't work well at all because we lost the internet. So I said, please come back. And so here we have Gretchen SB, and we have uh, God, I don't have my glasses on. Sorry, Elizabeth. I need my glasses to pronounce your name. Uh, uh, Elizabeth Guizzetti.
That's right.
All right. Well, Elizabeth and Gretchen got my attention because they had really good looking displays at WesterCon, and they both have the privilege of being self published writers. And thank God self publishing has gone from being the vanity press imagery that it had when I was young to what you guys are enduring today is the wow, this is how I make money without and cut out the middleman. So, uh, Gretchen, start with you. Tell us about your work, your books, your stuff.
I write across a couple of genres and subgenres. So I have some urban fantasy, some paranormal romance, some paranormal cozy, and then I have what they call clean or sweet romance as well. So I go all over the board.
If somebody was saying, what's your most recognizable work?
That would be my paranormal cozy, which I don't have sitting here with me. It is the Jas Bond series, and like the first one is Green Goo Goblin. It has the guy and then the Rottweiler on the cover. Those tend to be the most recognizable because those are my most popular.
That's good. So, Elizabeth, what about you? Tell us about your work.
So I'm a comic book illustrator, and I write mostly horror, mostly about vampires or the paranormal.
Okay, yeah, I remember your vampires. Tell us a little bit more about your vampires.
So my vampire series is all set generally either in there's two sides of it. One's historical dramas, and then the other one is set like today, and they're just dealing with like life today. So for example, in Immortal House, the vampire's just trying to buy a house. You know, he has to look at houses at night and stuff like that. It's a little difficult.
You know, if I was going to be a vampires, their life has to really suck, and I had no pun intended. Well,
Oh, I
actually,
thought you intended your pun.
double pun. Undead life and suck. Yeah, vampires. Yeah. I mean, think about it. You can't go out to breakfast. You, it's just really got to be a far cry from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Happy,
Well,
but
I would, you know, they have their friends, just like everybody, other vampires and stuff. But yeah, it's not exactly the easiest existence. They just
do
generally in
your
my books don't say the word life very much.
do your vampires have game nights?
One does. So one of my books is about this vampire detective, and her vampire grandpa does a game night because he wants his, progeny to come and visit.
And
They
like,
play
there's
Scrabble
a
and stuff.
comment came in from Cheryl. Cheryl says, I like independent publishing better. Have you guys ever given any thought to whether independent publishing or self-publishing?
Oh, well, for myself, I just use the words interchangeably.
So do I.
Yeah, mostly if I'm talking to someone outside of it, I'll tend to say independent publishing. Otherwise, if I'm just talking to Gretchen, then I think we just say the word publishing.
Yeah.
All the publisher is the person who takes the risk. So if I'm publishing it, then I'm my publisher.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Elizabeth, but when I started in 2013, the term independent publishing wasn't well known at all yet. And so it was just self-publishing, or else people didn't know what you were talking about. And it wasn't until I would say like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, that they became more interchangeable. And so I think it's just whatever you got used to when you joined the industry as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The other thing, when I started, independent publishing meant anybody that wasn't Big Five.
Yeah.
And so if you weren't that, small presses are also independent publishers. But yeah, otherwise, if you like independent publishing, certainly use those words. That's
Well, let's be blunt. I run an enjoyable and effective small press, and you guys self-publish, but in the end, we're using the same tools.
Yeah.
We're having the same product. Your product shows up on Amazon. My product shows up on Amazon. The Big Five's products show up on Amazon. It's a great leveling field, this thing called Amazon is, or in this thing called Audible is, where our books have the same shot at being recognized and seen as about anybody's. Where it changes is bookstores. You and I can't get into bookstores very easily on the mass market.
Yeah, to get into a bookstore, you really end up doing a ton of work. An independent bookstore is much easier first of all, to get into, and they often actually have independent publishing or self-publishing either sections, or you can do consignment. It just depends on what they do. Some small bookstores don't do that, and if you're on like Ingram Spark, you can be in their bookstore as long as your book is returnable and your book is a 40% or 55% discount depending on the bookstore.
Yeah, and you have to be real careful with those, because once you get to like 50, 55%, if they return it, you're kind of eating the cost of that book.
And the shipping of that book. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's a publishing is a rough gig. I mean, what is it the guy once said, that how do you make a small fortune publishing? Start with a large one. Oh, come on. You hadn't heard that?
I hadn't heard it.
No.
Because I think it's true.
It's true.
Well, one of my dearest friends in the world asked me a question the other day. She asked me, says, is Big Cube Press your business or your dependent? Well, it's more like a kid. I spend a lot of money on it, but I love it to death, and I'm very proud of it when I get to take it to see Grandma. So let's talk about the business of what you're doing. You guys, like I said, we deal with many of the same things. The only difference in you and me is that you're a better, or for Elizabeth, you're a better artist than I am. Both of you have fabulous looking books. We all use the same tools. So do you find any advantage to being your own master when it comes to covers?
Well, one thing that I've run into is I've done covers that I love, and it doesn't appeal to anybody. And
Trolls, they are all trolls.
yeah. And so in some ways it's actually harder because when you go to a cover artist, generally cover artists really know the market that they are in. But when you're doing your own cover, it's really easy to be like, oh, this is my vision for the cover, instead of what the cover should be, what talks to the market, because the cover is ultimately your ultimate marketing tool. It needs to look good on the book. It needs to look good as a little thumbnail. It needs to look good everywhere. Gretchen, did you want to add anything?
I think that it also depends on the, like, I've only ever had one book with a small press once. And the cover they designed for that book was better than the cover I had at the time, but was not in line with that genre at all. So it's a supernatural suspense. It's a homicide detective who gets introduced to the paranormal world. And the cover they had for it was a generic black shadow walking away from the camera on a like suburban pathway, and the title. And that's great if it was a mystery thriller, but you would not know from that cover that it was supernatural or fantasy in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, I only have that experience to pick from, but I would have never picked that cover. Not that my cover choices have always been great or to market, but I think that one of the pluses to being independent is that nobody knows your book like you. And so it's tough to see somebody cover your book and know that that's not going to work.
Yeah, I have a friend, Irene Radford. She appears on here, and she is a wonderful writer. She writes, among other things, cozy mysteries, and she had a publisher who, bless their heart, dressed her. That's Southern for what a stupid shit. By the way, the put a black leather with the string straps, I guess, I don't know what it's called, uh, on her cozy mystery heroine, who is actually quite a frumpy little lady. And she complained about the cover and said this isn't right, and the publisher insisted on going ahead. Finally, she had to say, look, you're never getting another book from me until that cover changes. And it worked. But yeah, covers are important, and it's good to be in control. Now, you make your own covers, you say, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And Gretchen, you hire out yours.
Mm-hmm.
The how's the when you hire yours out, do you just hire out the image, or you have them do the whole lettering, the whole works?
All of it, the whole thing.
Amen. I like it that way myself. So Vella is a tool for Amazon writers. You guys both use Vella?
Yeah, we do.
Do you like it?
I like it for seasonal short works. I am not good about, well, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not good at remembering weekly updates of anything. So it's not great for me as like, oh, for one of my novels. But I've done short work of like short stories or like novelette length stories and like 10,000 words and like do it over a season, like for Halloween. It did great for that.
What about you, Gretchen?
It was really, really great the first year it started, and then the bonuses got smaller and smaller, but it didn't help that I took kind of a hiatus from writing for like a year and a half because I went back to school. And so I kind of let my Vella go by the wayside. But it is really nice because Vella readers, I've had more Vella readers reach out to me and find me and ask me questions about my stories than I had pretty much any other thing in my catalog of work. So that's been really nice.
So if you had to say, if somebody says, give me a sales pitch that makes me of why I should try about Bella, that would be it. The reaching out, or is there other equally positive elements of it?
I think that it's also, if you are writing it consistently, which I think Elizabeth can back me on this. If you're updating it consistently, uh, the reader interaction builds, and the bonuses, because Vela gives out bonuses each month to authors, that gives you a steady income, which you don't always get if you're a small published independent as well. And so that's nice. And if you are working on the routine of writing, so if you need accountability for writing, Vela is a good one as well, because you would have to publish each week to keep that up.
Yeah. I would also say that you really need to know yourself, though, if you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I learned the hard way that this is not really great for me personally, except when I have a project that is like, oh, this is a perfect project for Vela. And for me, it's that 10,000 word, not quite a novella and not quite a short story.
That's a good thing. I was popping up a title I was going to ask you about, but it tends to cover Gretchen's face. And I was like, nah, we can move on. So now, what is the vision? I mean, I know we all want to have our stuff read. I think if I don't know about you, but for me as a writer, editor, publisher, is I go more for I want people to read and enjoy. And what's the big in it for you? What's the big payoff for you as a writer, as a publisher?
Do you want to go first, Gretchen?
Sure. I mean, the biggest payoff would be able to do it full time, but the big thing for me now is the fact that I've been telling weird stories since I was a small child. I've always loved telling people stories and entertaining people. I'm just a little strangeling. And to be able to just have a forum where I can write that story, publish it, and then people come up to me and be like, I loved it. I loved these characters that you had in your imagination that you just spewed onto the page. It was great. Like, I think that if I was born in another era, I would have tried to be a herald or something like that, because I just love telling people stories. And so having an outlet to be able to do that and have people like it, it makes me ridiculously happy.
I can say
understand.
Yeah. Like, but for me, it's like when people have an emotional connection to my books, whether, no matter what it is, even if they don't like it, I'm actually okay with it. I've had plenty of people not like my books. And it has been, but when anybody comes up and talks to you about it or sends you a message about it, I always feel amazing. So to me, it's not even if they like it.
Well, I can understand. Back when I still had hair, excuse me, I did Northwest Public Radio. I was a commentator. I can still remember that. I was at a convention and I'd signed the roster somewhere. And this fella, and I'll say old fella, but he's younger than I am now. Perspectives change. Came trotting down after there, says, "Are you that Bob Brown?" And it was like, oh gosh, yeah. But it is fun. It is people resonate. People connecting with your work is an excellent thing. So now, how important from y'all's business model is reviews?
So for mine, it ended up becoming less important once I had more books out. Still, it's really important everywhere. But one thing is that I have enough of a fan base with certain projects that there's enough spillover now that it sort of like I'm in a holding pattern at least. I can always afford to do one more book no matter what.
Yeah. It that statement is like so accurate. It matters a lot, and it matters a little bit less with each book because there'll be so many that you'll have something for everyone. But I think that reviews have the most impact when you first publish because it's a brand new book and nobody knows about it. And reviews are the utmost important when it's brand new published and they're negative reviews, because if it's the first like 5 reviews and like 2 of them happen to be negative, people are going to see that and be like, ooh, I do not want to read that book.
Words you use.
Pardon?
What's this negative review word you use?
I don't mean constructive criticism reviews. I mean when it's a 1 or 2 sentence review where it says didn't like it or hated it or it was stilted, or just, when it's not constructive, when it's not like, hey, their grammar was terrible and you're like, oh no, did I upload the wrong file? Like when it's a truly negative review that isn't helpful to you in any way. Those, I think, when readers see those, at least when I'm reading and I see those and there's not a lot of reviews, it always gives me pause because you don't know why the first reviews are negative.
Since I write, or I don't write, I publish political fiction. One of our favorite things, I mean, oh yeah, trust me, we're pretty much socialists over here at BQ Press and proud of it. But some of our 1-star reviews become our favorite reviews. I don't need no snowflake writer telling me what to think. No, I'm sure you don't, sir. But yeah, that's I find all reviews have their use, and it's fun. But so, do you get feedback through the review process?
So I don't really read my reviews anymore, so no. I did back when I was first starting, though, because when you're first starting, you actually can get information, and you should look for information everywhere. But now, not so much. But for the same reason, either people like my stuff and they're saying nice things, or it didn't connect with them, or they just don't like it, and they're not saying very nice things. And yeah, I mean, I get enough of like people telling me good and bad stuff at conventions.
That is a convention is a great place to go to get that kind of feedback. And I like what I'm seeing with you guys, though. This notion is it's universal. I mean, you're not chasing the reader. The readers are coming to you. If they don't like what you're writing, you're not changing your writing to match the readers, and you're still working at it, and you're still making book, so to speak. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, it is for me.
I will chase readers a little bit in that I have 4 or 5 open series right now, and 2 of them I am not working on because the sales aren't there. I will come back to them eventually because I hate having things that are unfinished. But the ones that I'm actively working on are the ones that sell better. So to a certain extent, I chase the readers, but I'm going to finish the ones that aren't selling anyway because I love them.
We all love our books, don't we? The have either of you ever? I mean, with where you're going and what you're doing, what do you see as the end game for you? Oh, just a second. End game brought to you by Food Press. We had our end game special This was our series about the election of conservative Republicans to office, one orange one in particular. And we had to put this book on special, what we call that, an indictment special during WesterCon or NorwestCon. And so I have to remember that. So, but what's your next step? I mean, for you guys, you got books out, you're publishing, you're selling, you're drawing, your comics are good, your art is good. You're going to sell me a book, a story, aren't you, Elizabeth?
Yep, I am.
Okay, thank you. You too, Gretchen. I mean, but Elizabeth and I have a handshake deal now. And so, I mean, where are you guys going to go? You going to just keep plugging away, building your readership?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I just like right now, so one thing I am doing that's a little bit different, though I started it a little bit over the pandemic, was I started doing illustrated hardbacks of my vampire books, mostly because it's cool. And it's really an expression of art for me. And so like right now I have a Kickstarter going on for an illustrated hardback. And so like, even though they're print on demand, they become really beautiful. And what I found at the conventions, and one of the reasons I'm continuing to do them, is there's a very specific reader for that book, not the book itself, but the fact that it's a hardback and that it's illustrated. It's weird. As soon as I see them, I'm like, that's the reader that I am too, because I love this sort of thing. So I'm writing books that I love anyway. Might as well put it in a package that I love as well. And so like my first one was this one called Accident Among Vampires, or What Would Dracula Do?
Yeah.
And this was the first one I did.
Closer to the camera. Closer to the camera, Elizabeth.
Sorry. Accident Among Vampires, or What Would Dracula Do? And so this was the first one I did, and I brought it to Crypticon because, you know, horror convention, and it was so strange. As soon as people saw it, the people who would be interested in it, you could see their mouth water for it. Because I always show it
internal illustrations.
Yeah, I always show a couple of different illustrations. Like one of them is this one of Norma and her 14-year-old boyfriend. They're both 14, having their first kiss, and then she gets turned into a vampire. That like totally sucks for her. But I have a couple of them that like just sell the book. Like people like seeing it. And the one that sells the book the most, because I can always make a joke out of it, is this one of Norma like ripping out her mom's heart. But that has to be at the horror convention, obviously. That's not the picture that goes up over at NorwestCon.
Did you say ripping out her mom's heart?
Well, yeah, that's why she leaves home. She can't stay home because she'd do that. She's dreaming these things of like eating her mother. So she goes and lives with the vampires. Then she has to figure out what being a vampire really is.
It's a very sad story.
It is. It's sad.
It's very sad.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm like, she has her vampire grandpa who loves her very much, and that's great. But, she can't be with her mom, and she misses her mom terribly.
Okay.
About books are hating them and wanting people to interact with them emotionally.
Okay, putting hardcover books aside for a moment, how does one wind up with be a vampire with a vampire mother and a vampire grandfather?
Her mom's just her mom. She was an accidental vampire, as you can see by the cover. And she was, and basically the short version is her progenitor had kind of gone crazy. And she couldn't stay with him because of his crazy. And his progenitor, so in human terms, he's her grandpa.
Oh, progenitor.
Yeah, he's really her progenitor's progenitor.
Oh, okay.
Who thinks that's stupid to call him that? Mostly she just calls him Derek, but occasionally to annoy him, because he has, died at 27, she'll call him grandpa. And then he begins to like being her grandpa.
I gotta say, I'm looking forward to reading your books.
Thank you.
Um, I mean,
So, yeah.
all of our conversations have shown me I've not had one conversation with you yet that you haven't made me pause and think about something. And that's the mark of what is going to be truly a great writer.
Thank
Uh, and
you.
But I also, you just inspired me too. I have books that I have not put out to hardcover editions to. I have books that I have interior illustrations for that are waiting to be published. And now that thought of watching you, of your use of the illustrations on the inside and doing it only for the hardcover is kind of cool. I like that. Is that so? Is that what makes the people kind of drool for the book? Is the interior illustrations, or is it the hardcover?
It's both. It's that this is a beautiful package and a beautiful piece of artwork that you can hold and afford. Because I try to keep my hardbacks fairly inexpensive. It's one of the reasons I do black and white printing. And so I can retail them for $25, which is generally really inexpensive when you look at a hardback at a bookstore. There isn't a dust jacket. That's one of the ways I keep the price down. But I really think about everything as if it was a piece of art, because to me it is.
I'm worried that our commenters seem to be broken. Because usually we have dozens by now in the viewership. So if you guys have questions or comments, guys, bring them up. You've got the folks right here. You know, Gretchen and Elizabeth are here to answer your questions as well as mine. But
what's great about Elizabeth's hardbacks too is I've watched her at shows. She'll have the cover facing out, and then she'll have a stand below it that'll be open to the illustrations. And I'll watch people walk by her table and pause and then look at it. And I have been either by or with a table on 2 separate occasions where she'll have opened it to a different picture, and I'll hear someone go, "Wait, that's a different one than earlier." And then they go to her table. Like, it's genius.
Thank you. It took me a long time to figure out my genius.
Hey, I tell you, I'm going out to the shop this afternoon. I finally was sitting there at the convention thinking about book displays, and book displays. How you display your books on a table is difficult and I am literally going out there this afternoon to build a mock-up for my collapsible book display so that I can pack all my displays in one box. So, yeah, it's been fun. But I am looking forward, and you also make me now want to go put together that hardback that I need to put together.
You know, one thing that Gretchen does really well with her table is, well, there's 2 ways I've seen it. First of all, she's really aware of like what her readers want, but she does it in color blocks. And that really is nice, because most people, when they're walking through a convention, they're sort of scanning the table, and colors really do tell you kind of what it's about, or lets you know that it's breaking the mold a little bit. And so, like, and the other thing that Gretchen did, which I really liked, like, I think I liked it even more than she did, was she had these candles, the LED candles between her series at NorwestCon, and I was just like, that's genius. Because it's lighting and book display.
Oh, I'm just listening to quote Cheryl. Oh. But no, it's, I mean, I just, I very much like, so do you see more hardcovers in your future?
Every book now will have a hardcover. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I should say every book that I know I can sell a hardcover. So vampires, absolutely. Because the fans who like vampires like old-fashioned stuff. The other hardback I do is for the comics. And so like here's the softback of Walnut's comic, and here's the hardback version. And the hardback version has its own little special things. And that I sold more hardbacks of this book, of that Walnut book, than I did of paperbacks. The paperbacks are $12. The hardbacks are $40. Like, and yet I'm selling the hardbacks.
That is interesting. I have one book that is not the best book I sell. I have to admit it. But it's got the best cover. When I put that cover on a t-shirt, I can't keep the t-shirts in stock. And I keep telling myself, my God, people got to get tired of that. Nope. But so yeah, that's the art matters, and I love your Walnut. Now, Walnut is the comic book we've been discussing, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first book was called Out for Souls and Cookies. The second book is called The Adventures, or the Legends of Walnut Razorfang. And then every book of that book will have, like, the first one was for Blood, Bones, and Biscuits. The second one, I don't have quite a title. I just have the concept for, and I've written out the script. Because comic books, you're not writing a book, you're writing a script for it. And so Gretchen knows all about it. Because I was writing it at NorwestCon.
Well, Cheryl wants to know about Walnut.
She's right here. But she was like, I'm tired. Why are you picking me up?
He's looking like he's using that
This
special
is Walnut.
to triple his weight.
Yeah.
But in your comic book, what makes the Walnut unique?
So Walnut, and then before Walnut, Rosie and Tycho are my poodles. And they, Rosie especially was a demon. I am sure of that. Walnut, however, is a little adventure puppy. Though on Sunday mornings, obviously, she wants to sleep. Because even right now, she's kind of like, what am I doing here?
Yes.
Look, there's Gretchen.
The demon spawn, the two retired demons that became your pets. Yeah.
That's right. The two retired demons became my pets. And then Walnut is the poodle that came to rescue the giant from the demons.
Yeah, that's Seattle for you. That's where small dogs go to dominate.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I had people actually trying to buy my small puppy from me because they could take it to Seattle and sell it. Of course, they were a rescue outfit, but it was pretty special how their rescue worked. I kept the puppy. But so that is fun. Now, let's talk. Do you have a dog, Gretchen?
I do. I have a Rottweiler. She is the model that I based a character on in the series that does really well because I have a Rottweiler on the cover.
I have a pug, and I have Knox, and Knox has me. But how active? One of the things that I find is most interesting to do is give your people pets and actually write as if the pets are part of the people's world, not just an affectation. How does that work for you?
Well, my series that does really well, people love it because the Rottweiler's in it, but I based it off of my husband is a retail manager, and he comes home with some just bonkers stories. And so I based the character off of some of the stuff that he has been through. And so the dog goes to work with him and she hangs out in the store. So the dog is very active in the store. There are customers she likes and customers she doesn't like. And so the dog in the book has a huge personality, and anybody who enjoys dogs that reads that book usually comes back to me and is just like, oh, I loved how active the dog was. It's a lot of fun to write them as a personality instead of just a dog that appears in a scene and then wanders away.
Oh gosh, yeah. Um, I have a book I'm working on right now by Tilden, by Sumner Brooks. That the president has a pair of pug puppies, and any scene where he's not out on the street, on the trail, so to speak, in front of a camera, those puppies are there with him, and it truly helps manage scenes. Puppies and animals are like custom made for managing scenes. If you need, if you want to have them pause for a moment, that's not having a drink, sipping his beer, smoking a cigarette, looking out the window. You can take all of the standard tropes and just use a puppy instead. It works very well.
Yes, it does. You do know in Walnut for Blood, Bones, and Biscuits, I'm the pet, right? Like, it's her story, so I'm the dog.
And you're a pair of shoes in Souls and Cookies.
Yeah, and in Apples and Cookies, both my husband and I are in it, and yeah, we're shoes. We're not even. We do give them steak, so they're like, oh, we need to stay around these animals because they keep feeding us. We're the pets in my book.
Sometimes that's the way in real life. I mean, you ever watch the show when Jim Wright's on? Nah, probably not. You're only recently aware of it. He's got dogs. David Gerald has dogs that interfere lovingly in their show. They're on once a month, and people recognize their dogs as much as they recognize the people. Now, Karen, you remember Karen from last time you were on? Her cat wanders through the show. So the KG Anderson Memorial Cat is always wandering through the camera. And oh yeah, David has his grandkids too. And everybody likes his grandkids, both of them, but they love his animal, his little pooch too. So we're coming in to the last 15 minutes. So what do you really want to tell the world that they need to know about you guys and your work? And if I started with you, Gretchen, what is it you want them to know? Or if you could give advice to people who want to be like you, what advice would you give them other than just be smart?
The advice that I give young to publishing writers is to not do what I did, which is I wrote across 3 different series I wrote book 1 from 3 different series right off the bat instead of working multiple books in one series first. And that was a huge mistake, audience building. While it's really cool to have multiple genres under your belt, if you're writing a first in series and you don't give them the next book in series for 3 years, audiences tend to forget who you are. So it's really important if you're going to write series, if you're writing series, to have at least book 1 and book 2 written before you publish book 1, or to be consistently working in that series until it's far enough along to have built an audience. Otherwise, you will end up losing your audience between books, because unfortunately people read a lot faster and expect more from you as an indie than they do the traditional publish. So that's my big piece of advice is really plan what you're doing. Do not just write from separate series. It was such a mistake. I wish I had a time machine.
There's a lot of people who have said that same thing to George. George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
For God's sake, just finish it. But honest to God, I get to laugh a little bit because he's the writer. He owns his destiny. And he knows that when he puts that book out, people will pick it up and they will read it. And then they will go buy all the other ones to catch up and get their and trot down to the mailbox with a wheelbarrow as they're picking up their books from Amazon. Those are some hefty books.
Yeah.
But I like your point. And crossing genres. If you're building an audience, crossing genres does not help that much. Even BQ Press, we're small press. We write humor, we write redemption, we write politics, and I've heard our stories referred to as hope punk, and not realizing just how firmly that audience expectation is embedded. I put out a horror book called Alternative Holidays. Then I took all of the funny, happy, regular kind of stories that BQ Press usually publishes, put them in a cover. That all came in for the same anthology. It cracks me up that it's outsold the front book by about 2-1, because my audience for BQ Press, it matches their desires. It's the book they want when they pick up a BQ Press. So you've got that right. Absolutely. Your audience expects something from you when they see your name. Yes, Holiday Leftovers. That was it, Cheryl. Now, you heard the front end. Anything, adding on, what would you have to say there, Elizabeth?
Well, first of all, I did change genres. And I'm going to say something a little bit different, but it has to do with what you said. I changed genres because I started in sci-fi. It wasn't working out for me. It's not that the book, like when you took it, actually like the basics of the book, the really emotional story, the science fiction honestly was dressing. And I ended up leaving that genre. I wasn't selling that many books anyway there. And started something else. So if you change genres, make sure you know why you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm not writing sci-fi anymore. But I'm also not going back and forth between sci-fi and horror. I'm just not writing sci-fi anymore. And everybody nobody has been really upset about that. Like I said, there was only like 5 real fans of that series anyway. And
5?
Yeah, like 5. Like I had one really big fan who was always so excited to see me. And I was just like, I'm sorry. You can't run a book series on 5 fans. You just can't. And maybe one day I will finish that series, but no one, at this point, no one thinks I will. The other thing about them was they were standalone stories. So I didn't feel like, oh, I need to finish a series because there's a 3rd book with that, like the climax of this. No, it was nothing like that. It was a standalone book that I had published by a small press. And then I actually have no idea how I sold them the second one because it sold so badly. But I sold them not 1 book, but 2. And so, yeah, if something isn't working out for you, don't feel stuck. Like the great thing about being an independent publisher and having control of your own destiny is that you do. So just if something's not working out, set it aside and find what works for you.
Well, that is there's somebody once wrote, "To thy own self be true." It's kind of a nice way of putting that. That's where your responsibilities lies, to you and yours, and being bold about it. So we're coming to that part of the show where now I don't know. Oh, that was my coffee cup.
No.
That was my keyboard. And I can only say one really great. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh, it's okay. I'm still here, but my monitor turned off. So you guys carry the show for a moment while I recover.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, you make your own covers.
Yes.
Exactly how much time goes into one of your illustrated covers versus one of your more like vectorized covers, like your cozies? Because when we're talking about covers, like I send my specs off to someone and tell them to do it. You do it yourself. Exactly how much time, just for reference, does it take for that?
So, illustrated cover takes me about 3 days, and that's about 25 hours minimum. Including the vector covers, the first one of a series. So, like for the first Norma cleaning service book, the Cozy Mystery, that one took me forever. I did like 7 different versions of that, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like it, and then I suddenly like hit on the right thing, and then I tried to change it a little bit for the next book. And so all the vampire symbols became sirens and witches because that's what's in the next book. And so then I was like, okay, these work really well as to like, this is going to work well for a series. So the second and third cover really didn't take me very long, but that first cover, it didn't matter that it was vectors. It was just as long as any illustrated cover. So, Gretchen, what do you think is your most profitable? Like, I know you think the Jax books is the most like best selling. Do you think you do better like on Vella or doing like books?
I do best. I ironically, because I'm so long-winded as a person, my novella series do best. I have 2 novella series, Jas, and then some clean romances, and those are my best series. The ones that are between 16 and 30,000 words as a series are where I do best, which I don't have any more series like that planned. So I'm not really leading with my best foot.
So, do you know where you want to be in 10 years?
I mean, I'm a very much what does this button do type person. So, no, even though I have my books planned out about 15 years in advance, it shifts a lot. What about you?
Well, I hope to have the Walnut, just like I did with Apples and Cookies. I hope I have the Walnut series. That same sort of way where I'm putting out the one thing I am doing differently though, as you know, I did pamphlets, so 20-page for people who don't know comic book publishing terms. Pamphlets are under 20, maybe 24 pages, and then they all get put together into a graphic novel. The problem with doing that is your per unit cost for colored printing is too high. So I did a longer, more of like a novella style comic book of 48 pages. And then it ended up being 60 pages, talk about someone being extra long-winded. and then I started selling those because those can sell for $12. I'm making enough of a profit I can turn them around. So I'm hoping I'll do that with Walnut. I did with Apples and Cookies. And then I'm hoping I'll have all of the Elder Vampire stories in beautiful illustrated hardback. And that's what I want to see in 10 years.
That's very doable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time Elizabeth and I met, I actually had read Out for Souls and Cookies. Like I had the first 3 and I absolutely loved them. And the first time we met, we were sharing a table and I horrified Elizabeth because she had her Out for Souls and Cookies like banner up. And I walked up and I dropped my box, the thing I was dragging along with books, and I went, "You're out for Souls and Cookies!" And I pointed at her, and both her and our third table mate looked at me like I had just hit a deer with like my car. Like they looked horrified and concerned for their safety. And then Elizabeth just went, yeah. And I love salsa cookies. I have to tell my friend. And then I like sent a video message to a friend of mine, and Elizabeth is just in the back like, I am so uncomfortable right now.
Cheryl from the comments. Cheryl just said, sounds like some planning. And yeah, I think Gretchen and I both plan stuff like kind of out far in the future.
Yeah.
Especially once you've done a couple books, you sort of have this idea of how long a book actually takes. Some people think that I don't do anything all day and just like hang out with the dog and I don't know what else. But like, you know, I'm working 9 to 10 hours a day and so like I kind of can figure out these things, but they do take a lot longer than people think.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I like watching home shows and I'll draw when I'm doing home shows.
Yeah, if you don't have it planned, you just kind of sit there and flounder and don't necessarily end up writing anything unless you're a complete pantser, which more power to you. But yeah, if you don't know what if you don't know what your next project is, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you would do. That seems so foreign. So
this thing that's white behind me normally has a big checklist on it, but because I'm on camera, it's why I pulled it down. It actually has a checklist for a book that's coming out later this year. And so we like, this is my clean version of my office. There's a big pile of stuff that you guys can't see over there. And normally you have like, I have calendars behind on this wall because it tells me of like what's next, specifically because I will flounder and just stare at stuff. Or I'll decide I'm going to write a song. Writing songs. But I do a lot of stuff for fun.
Hey, guys or folks.
That's a really good idea, Cheryl. Hi, Bob.
Not yet, but it's early. That was a joke, ma'am. I need to go into the. I need you to hang. I'm going to hang around here because I'm going to go into the commercial break, and then I got to chat with you guys after the show. So, folks, while I clear the things that seem to be showing up on my screen, there we go. So we are coming to the end of this podcast, but I will remind you there are some wonderful things coming out of BQ Press right now to pay attention to. We have 2 open calls. One is with Jared Kavanagh. He's an Australian writer and editor, and he is our co-editor for Scott's Planet. Now, Scott's Planet is the book that you really piqued my interest with your internal illustrations because I liked them, liked the concept. Because the first story I ever sold was the story of Scott's Planet, not the anthology, and they used internal illustrations before every story, and I thought it was really classy. And I said, if I ever get rich enough to afford that, I'll do it. But anyway, we have that one open right there. It's 1,300 colonists abandoned when corporate decides the colony they founded just wasn't profitable. And so have a nice life, people. You know, we're gone. And so they left. And this is the story of those who were left behind. And Tim LaHaye, just so you know, it's a different Left Behind. So we have that one. And like I say, couldn't ask for a better co-editor than somebody from Australia, you know, the land of Mad Max. Gotta love it. And then we have alternative leadership. And that is the underrepresented people in leadership, how they get there, how they manage it. Et cetera. And anybody who reads BQ Press knows that we love humor and we are sometimes satirical, other times sarcastic, and if and borderline snarky at times. Hey, come on, it's I mean, would you believe me if I didn't have a cover like this to hold up and say? um, but the fun of it is that book is just opened up. We already have two. Been open for a day, and a couple of submissions already rolled in. And I got to say, um, I'm loving them. If I didn't have a co-editor to appease, you have to lay. A co-editor is like having a god in your pocket. You've got to sacrifice things to them, appease them, keep them happy. And so she is. As soon as she gives me the word, I'll know if I can buy them or not. And but that's not the best part. We have coming up, opening up for next week is Alternative Truth. Now, Alternative Truth, for those who don't know, is our very first book, an anthology about what's going to be the consequences of this orange-haired creature that has suddenly moved into the White House. I mean, are we going to have little smudge protectors put everywhere to keep the tanning cream off the walls or the furniture, or what? What's going to be the consequences? Stayed on the. Well, just a second. I can even point to it. That one. It managed to say number one for about a week, and then on the top 10 for about 6 weeks. So we were happy with it, but we're doing Alternative Truth Southern Edition, bless their hearts, and it's being edited by Karen or KG Anderson, and you guys have met Karen, a wonderful human being, and so that's what's going on at B Cube Press. We're planning on making some more good books for good people, and that said. Anything you guys wanted to say before we close it out?
Well, if you want to self-publish or independent publish, it is a ton of fun and a great adventure.
I agree with you. What about you, Gretchen?
I would add that if you want to self-publish, it's also a lot of work. It's not for the faint of heart, so be prepared.
Yeah, and like I say, all the same work processes, the same tools, the same everything, very similar, except you don't have to write yourself contracts. Is similar for small press, and I agree with everything they said. So thank you, and so I urge you to go find Gretchen SB's books and Elizabeth. I already forgot how to pronounce it. Could you do it for me?
Guizzetti.
Thank you. Books, and because you got to support your local writers, the best way to say it. And thank you, and goodbye, audience, for the day. Oops, I can't say goodbye, audience, for the day. I forgot to tell them. Next week is Jim Wright and David Gerald are going to bring their dogs and their grandchildren, and they're going to talk to us. And Jim is going to be back in Michigan, I believe. So we'll get to see more of that special coffee shop, and we're getting to enjoy the differing breeds of animals he finds to photograph up there. So now I'll say goodbye.